Ajá, vamos al lío. Ujú. Okay. Yeah. Yes, I'm listening. Okay, all right. I have everything ready, so. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah. Yes. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. And as Manuel has already introduced, I'm Anna. I'm working at the System Management Department of 50 Hertz as a policy advisor. I'm based in Berlin. I will tell you a bit more about 50 Hertz, but I'm originally from Spain. I graduated in electrical engineering 10 years ago at Comillas University in Madrid. And currently, I'm the chair of Women Engineering Region 8 subcommittee. So what I have prepared for today is a brief introduction to what the TSO, Transmission System Operator 50 Hertz is, then the European context, the European Network of Transmission System Operators, and after going through this context introduction, I will also give a brief overview on how NSOE TSOs have been dealing with the COVID crisis, then concrete specific measures about how 50 Hertz has been dealing with the crisis, especially focusing on the employees working for the control room premises. And after that, for sure, there will be a Q&A session, so feel free to take all the questions for the end, and I will try to solve it. So the TSO context. 50 Hertz is operating the high voltage and electricity grid. So mainly this is the 2020 kV and 380 kV. And the company is based in Berlin, but we are operating the grid of all the former eastern part of Germany. As you can see in the map, and maybe if you're not aware of it, in Germany there are 4 companies operating the high voltage electricity grid. That's quite a special thing if you compare to other European countries where normally it's one company, one TSO. So for the case of 50 Hertz, we ensure the electricity supply to about 18 million people in Germany. And actually, we do have a lot of production of renewables energy, but the main load is based in the southern part of Germany. So it's not so many people and industries compared to other the other 3 TSOs. But I think this would require one more webinar where we would explain all the challenges renewables, and this is not the agenda today. So 50 Hertz actually belongs or is part of the ELIA group, and the ELIA group is, or let's say the other way around, ELIA and 50 Hertz belong to the ELIA group, and we were bought by ELIA. It's already was 2008, and so already not so quite long time ago. But we are the same group, and which can sound a bit weird because kind of we are not neighboring TSOs, we are not directly connected, but we follow actually lots of cooperation, especially in all this policy development I'm in, so in European regulation, and for sure for the different parts on system operation where I can speak more, we try to harmonize as much as possible the operational principles, but for sure each grid has its own specificities. So at the end, we are 2 companies belonging to the group. So making this vision wider and wider, let's go to the European context. So 50 Hertz belongs to the European electricity system. And here there's a brief map just as an overview. Especially Central Europe is really meshed. And this leads me to the next slide, where I will just introduce what the ENTSO-E is. ENTSO-E stands for European Network of Transmission System Operators, and it was actually formed by the third energy package, where the Commission decided, yeah, it makes sense just to increase the coordination and cooperation between the European TSOs, and let's make it under an umbrella network. And actually, this is, let's say, it's a company, it's based in Brussels, and all the TSOs of Europe are member of ENTSO-E. So here you can see the map of all the TSOs that are member of it, and as it's a quite wide spectrum of countries, we are categorized or classified by 5 regional groups. These regional groups are you can see it in the map by colors. So you have continental Europe, you have the Nordic TSOs, you have Baltic, and then UK and Ireland. So mainly it makes sense, especially when you want to deal with operational principles. So when you have like before this, I can talk more for continental Europe, where it's, Germany is located, but normally you need quite a coordination. Let's say if you have special operational measure, if there's a day with a lot of wind, if there's an inadequacy problem on the grid, whatever it is. So you really need high coordination, and this normally happens in the region. But for sure, when you try to develop European legislation, you try to find the highest common denominator for it, and then all the ENTSO-E is cooperating together. So just to see that we have different kind of initiatives within ENTSO-E depending on what's going on and what the problem is. So in the slide before, I just briefly said, okay, you need more and more coordination between TSOs, especially with all the introduction and growing of renewables. And like this, the TSOs first started an initiative, and then this initiative became European law, and it's the so-called regional security coordinators. So it's, imagine if I take this point out of the European TSO context, it's just when you are in your own house and you're only seeing your walls, it's quite hard to understand what's going on in the next house. So the concept of this regional security coordinators is to say, okay, let's have someone that has a kind of flying bird perspective and can tell me, okay, I'm not seeing it, but my neighbor is doing the following. So we do have this, you can see it in the map, there's 5 different so-called regional security coordinators. I'm mainly talking for Corizo and TSC-Net because 50 Hertz is member of both. And at the end, what the regional security coordinators is that we have certain services. So mainly when we are building a grid model, which is used then later on in the control center in order to be able to operate the grid, or when you need to make a security analysis of the operation of the grid, and you need to have the whole European or region of Europe. All these aspects are being dealt by the so-called RSCs in short term. And this is actually currently really key to ensure a safe operation and to be able to know what's going on, and especially this RSCs ensure that not only the cooperation between the TSOs itself, but also they inform affected TSOs in case something, there's a disturbance, a fault, or something that should be reported and that TSOs should be aware of. So this is a brief introduction of the context so that you know what 50 Hertz is and where it is embedded in Europe. Now I will try to reflect what we have been doing during the COVID crisis and which measures have been implemented. So on one side, I will just talk about the daily business at office, so things that we all are practicing now, like home office, but also I will try to get a bit into the point of what has been doing from the pandemic concepts for the people that are really, really important. So it's our operators based in the control room. So just as a high-level overview, first about the European TSOs. So let's say as a kind of message, it can be said that the situation has been under control and well managed during the whole crisis. So electricity security of supply, as Manuel has said before, it's something crucial because it's not only related to COVID-19. Everyone wants to have electricity in order to be able to use their laptop, use their phones, cook at home, have the fridge. But not only that, when thinking about a pandemic, and immediately you have the point of, oh, we do need hospitals running and they need the capacity in order to be able to have those people take care of the people in the hospital, but at the same time you need the machines and all the operating stuff that you need. The hospital should be running, you need the fridge. So it really gets one step higher, all this need, and there cannot be an interruption of the service at all. So despite all these circumstances, that it's the first time that we're having this pandemic since we are a TSO. So it's really positive to know that all European power systems have been able to work in the normal mode. So all of us, and it's actually a requirement by legislation, so European, but also national legislation, that each TSO needs to have a pandemic concept. But what was more the key problem was that, sure, we all had the concept. We had the concept and it was a written paper, but now it had to work. So for sure, there are, especially for the operations part, there are tests that are being done where we test this pandemic concept, but it's always a test. So now suddenly we had to make this in real time. And what was one of the conclusions that we noticed is that due to this decentralization, so you have seen that we have really lots of TSOs in Europe. So it's 42, but then even in Germany we do have 4. So we had the grid divided, sharing responsibilities, and this this allowed us to be really stable, and so it was a combination of, okay, let's be efficient, let's stay reliable, and it worked. So the only thing that some TSOs noticed is that, especially those where there are lots of industries based in or connected to the grid, so suddenly during the lockdown, the industry just, let's say, for example, if you take car producers, just one example for sure, they just closed for some weeks. So there was not so much demand, and some TSOs noted that due to this less demand, there was a less need of generation, so there was a shutdown of some power plants, but it didn't lead to any important consequence on the security of supply or on the system adequacy. if we go to the concrete measures that affect 50 Hertz, so 50 Hertz has almost 1,000 employees. And for sure, all the employees are human beings and are important. But the first ones that really were protected in a really special way, because this was a critical risk for the company, was that what would happen if suddenly we would have too many people in critical positions for ensuring this operation of the grid, and if they would suddenly get infected. So before I just go to this concrete measures, actually, if now I can see it as a like looking back at the time, and I remember that already in February, in our department, they were saying, so everyone who is traveling with public transportation shouldn't go to work. And for example, we do have the control center. The main control center is separated from our headquarters. So it's two different buildings, two different locations. It's about 30 kilometers distance. And it happened that they said, okay, people working in the headquarters cannot go to the control center premises and the other way down. So I remember in February, it was a bit like, it looks like science fiction, it's exaggerated. I remember at that time also in the supermarkets, it was where people just started to buy everything and everything was empty. So the first weeks we were thinking a bit like, what's going on? Is it not a bit exaggerated? But now I really can say that I think, and that's the example that I have lived as being of part of the company 50 Hertz, but definitely there was such a professional reaction, really analyzing everything in due time or even advance of time. And due to this good organization, we were able to work normal operation, not only from the grid perspective, but also from the people. So, sorry, I need some water. I remember, so for the employees, from 1,000 employees, we did have one person that got infected, and it was mid of March. So it was just 4 days before the lockdown in Germany. And this person informed about it. And the day after, everyone was asked to work from home. And we were ready for it. The IT was prepared. And this has been so far the only person that has been infected. And I guess that one important part was really the measures that 50 Hertz took to mitigate the risk. And these measures were already applied before the lockdown. So just to describe some of the measures taken. So there is still actually, but running 7 days a week, so currently still, let's see how much it will be needed, but there's a special task force in 50 Hertz that is daily having a teleconference where they're reporting about all the aspects. So one aspect is for sure the political situation in Germany. The second aspect is how is the evolution of the infected people all over Germany, and then especially for the area of Berlin and Brandenburg, where we are located. Then how's the company situation, and analyzing at any time what is the trend, what are the needs, and correspondingly to all this analysis, which measures should be taken. So I already said it before, but we were asked quite early to avoid public transport. And then all the non-operational employees, so all the people that are not directly based in the control room or working for a business IT, they were asked to work, so do a home office. And for sure, already the last work when we were in the office before, so last week of mid of March, let's say, there was already a lot of hygiene standards and disinfection. So especially the common areas, the canteen, the elevators, and so for sure, I think the next point is also not really new. For all of us, no traveling. We are now having lots of takers, lots of online tools that are replacing the traveling, especially all those colleagues that are working more on this European work at SOE, is my case. And this didn't mean at the same time that there are open positions in 50 Hertz. We need new employees. So all this job interviews, assessment center, and so on are still going on, but they turn to an online format. So this is more on the, let's say, company organization aspect. If we go to the core business of 50 here, so it's the control center, it's the operation of the grid. So here, it did not only mean let's go home, let's do home office, let's protect our employees. People have to work from the control center. And here it was really, really important to isolate them in the sense of only people that are working at the control room should be able to enter the building. And not only this, but they should be able to enter via a way that other employees cannot take. So actually completely isolated. So this followed to be that at the end, we did have different zones, so the green, yellow, and red, depending on how critical was the zone. And just to give you an example on how well equipped this red zone was, we even really have not only kitchen and beds, but also a wash machine, where in case the employees wouldn't have been able to get out, because imagine someone get infected and they shouldn't get out because then everyone will get infected. They would be able to live there for at least a week. So then for sure, before starting the work, the critical staff had the temperature monitoring, just checking, okay, could they have some symptoms? And then I think the third measure or specific handling is actually the most challenging one, is that we do have the main control center and we do have a backup. So imagine the main is not operational, we do have the second one. So normally the employees are working from the main one and the backup is actually never really used unless there's being done a test in the sense of is it still working and so on, but not as a main operation room. But no, now it really turned to be, okay, we do have two main control rooms and let's make it the following. So normally an employee has 8-hour shift. So now it turned to be 2 shifts for 12 hours. So we reduced this so that there was less movement between the employees. And also because, let's say, if one control room was used by the first shift, and then the second shift was using the other room, which is 30 kilometers far away, you had 12 hours to completely disinfect all the control room equipment, whatever, the chairs, the computer, everything. And this led to a really feasible operation process in the sense of, okay, you have 12 hours to organize everything. There's not normally when the employees were changing the shift and the new shift was coming, they had a half an hour in common where they were just informing each other, okay, what has happened. And what is the problem today is too much wind, it's an inadequacy issue, and so on. So this was happening just per call, Skype, and each one located in a different place so that there was no contact. Then for sure these teams were fixed. So yeah, it was really a hard commitment from the employees because suddenly all the part of normally when you have working in shift, you also have 3 days, you have holidays for sure. So all this part was avoided just to ensure, okay, we have everyone operational, we have shifts that are teams that are fixed, and so that the idea was let's mix the people as less as possible so that if one gets infected, it will be mainly or only 3 more people, but it will not be 20. So that even if it would happen that one shift would have been infected, it wouldn't have been a problem because we would have kept operational. So this is how it turned to be for the hardcore situation of COVID crisis. Since 3 weeks now, a situation is getting less and less critical in the sense for sure the COVID-19 is there, but the number of infected people is really decreasing. And so, in line with the political measures that are being taken, in line with the number of infected, 50 Hertz in this task force I mentioned before is analyzing the situation, and people that are working from home now are able to work in the office maximum 2 days per week, so that only maximum 20% of employees are in the premises and it doesn't get too full. When you enter the building, I have been the last 2 weeks working there, and you get masks, you get disinfection liquid, and in the canteen there are shifts so that people are each floor has one timetable so that you are not able to mix with too many people. You directly get your food, and everything is for sure under distance. Also in your when you are moving around the building, you should be wearing masks. And what is being discussed but not yet implemented is to slowly turn to the normal 3 shift operation instead of 2 shifts. So let's see how it continues. I'm optimistic that the measures can be open and everything is turning back to normality. But that's the challenge of this virus, that it's new. We don't know everything about it. We are learning still about it, and I think the important message here is to know that, okay, in the really hard wave we have had, we were fully operational. The measures seem to be quite adequate, and hopefully not, but in case suddenly there would be a peak again, I think it just would mean not investigating everything and creating the new wheel, but just again to put all these measures. So this is from my side. I hope it was interesting. It was giving you an overview about what the TSO business is doing, and in concrete terms, what 50 Hertz has been doing in the COVID crisis. And now I would say let's use the rest of the time for answering your questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. I like your slides and presentation. I like very much your overview of different criteria, the measures to mitigate the risk, and all of the presentation. Thank you very much. And at the beginning of the presentation, we have a problem with the microphone. Sorry for that. I think that is solved in the streaming session, but I tried.
Okay.
I tried. In the WebEx, it's not has this problem, and your presentation is completely recorded. No problem. And
Okay.
now is the time to question and answer. Please feel free to ask. We have a chat in the WebEx to all panelists or different speakers.
Am I also able to see? It should
Okay.
be here. Okay. Yeah. Mhm.
And we have the uh, at the moment only one, and is what is the most important thing to isolation in the to minimize in control center of 50 years? What is the most important thing to make isolation to minimize in control center of 50 years? This is a question for Abdullah.
So can you repeat, or can I see someone, or is it because or just to be sure I understood the question?
I sir, you. This is.
So what's the most important thing to isolation to minimize? To minimize in control center?
Yes, you explain in the presentation different measures
Yeah.
to minimize. I think that is the what is the most important,
So,
but I don't understand very well the question. Sorry.
so is it just I will try to answer and please maybe otherwise um, the Abdullah, I think you can try to make it again. But if I understood it well, what could be asked is that when you're in the control center of 50 Hertz, what's the most important thing or person to isolate? Is it this? So if I understood it well, for sure the most important are our employees because we do have lots of tools that are helping us for the operation of the network. We are making analysis constantly. We have real-time tools that are checking each second what's going on in the grid, but they are not working alone. We need someone to be checking it and then to press the button and say, okay, this and this had to be done. Then our employees are in constant contact with the neighboring TSO, especially with the RSCs, as I explained, because not only even if the tool we are using would say you need to make the following change in the grid, you need to connect whatever, you need to disconnect something. At the end, it's always the 4i principle in the sense that the computer is saying something, but it is only done if the engineer in chief is like approving this measure. So if we would not have the employees, then it would have really been a drama. That's why we took so many measures to protect them. So I
Yes, the
question.
next question is
Yeah,
that you
it's
think
more on the
yes,
German system.
about
Yeah.
the German system. Yes, the Carmelo Mosca says that it would like to know which problems the German system faces in terms of RES penetration and voltage management control due to low demand. Have some VRES been curtailed to keep traditional plants online?
Yeah, so actually,
It's a long question.
it's a long question, but this is really clear for me.
Okay.
This is okay. And actually, as I briefly said at the beginning of the presentation, this could again be a webinar of 2 hours because definitely it's a challenge how to operate, and especially in the part of the grid where 50 Hertz is the TSO, so our so-called control area, we do have really low industry compared to, for example, Bavaria, so on. Of like, just if you think about German companies and you check, okay, where is Audi located, where is Mercedes located, where is Bosch located, they're not in the area of 50 hertz. So we do have definitely on the other side a lot of renewables. We do have the Baltic Sea with the offshore, but then also we do have generally a lot of wind generation that at the end needs to be somehow, uh, let's say, transported to the south where the main generation is needed. So this is where the problem starts, and just to make it a bit more understandable for someone not working in a TSO, imagine you have the highway and you want to transport something from Berlin to Munich, but if the capacity of the highway is already full, then you won't be able to transport anymore. So in this sense, this is our main challenge. So our main challenge is mainly dealing actually with voltage issues due to voltage and frequency due to this too much generation compared to the demand needed. And this is why we do have lots of measures, so-called remedial actions, redispatch measures. And let's say this is actually at the end something that is really costly, because each time that you need make one of this measure, and quite often, and this is one of part of the question, is that we really have had a situation where all the traditional power plants were already shut down, but still we did have too much generation from renewables, so we had to curtail them. And each time you make this curtailment, you need to pay all the owners of this power plant. So this is a lot of money, and this money needs at the end is paid by the each single citizen of Germany. So this raises the question whether for sure we need lots of renewables, but if we don't have enough capacity, if we don't have enough transmission lines, and this is the next discussion in Germany, quite often there is this wish of being 100% renewable, but not wishing more capacity, not wishing more lines. So if we don't build more lines, we won't be able to transmit it. And then at the end, it's on one side for sure a high risk on the security of supply, but it's also money. I hope it answers the question. I cannot hear you.
You can hear me now? Oh, you can hear me? No? Oh, sorry. Hmm. I try to please. Okay, okay. Um, Anna, people say that they can hear me. You can hear me? No?
Hello? I think now I can hear you.
And now you can hear me?
Yes, now it's fine. But there
now
was
it's fine. Okay, okay.
like
Thank
2
you.
minutes where I couldn't hear anything.
Yeah, sorry. I try to the streaming session. And now the third question is for from Brian Zapata, that he says that how did people take having at 12 shift? That is it a risky to have long shift for important roles? people could get tired and not to pay enough that attention about that.
Sorry, but the sound is like interrupted, so I
Is it
couldn't
there? Oh,
understand the question or what you were saying.
okay.
Hello? Ah, yeah. So are there more questions? How did people take having a 2 hour shift? Um, okay, so actually, it is not something completely new. Um, there are situations, especially so the normal operation during non-COVID crisis is that during the week our employees have 8 hour shifts, and during the weekend there are only two shifts of 12 hours. But normally, when you have this 2 hour, 12-hour shift during Saturday, Sunday, then you get a week off. So this was a kind of compensation. Okay, you have a really um, heavy weekend, but then you get the days off and then you can relax. So this is certainly that now it was changed in the sense that it was not only during the weekend, but there were different shifts. But it didn't mean that each employee was working every day 12 hours. So on the day they were working, they had 12 hours, but it was maximum 3 to 4 days. And then you had again some days off. So for sure, what was not possible to take was vacation or more days off that usually you had. So for sure, the schedule was more tight on that. And in order to ensure that all the teams are keeping together, but it was not meant in the sense of each day all of the employees are working for 12 hours. So normally we have maximum four people in the shift. So sometimes even it was reduced to three because three is also enough. And then if you have around 20 people, you can make the divisions. I just stopped sharing because I'm not sure if this is why the connection is a bit slow. But are there more questions? I think we do have about 5 more minutes. So if there are no more questions, I would rather say that we could close the session, but please confirm that, Manuel, if you can confirm that there are no more questions. So actually, can you hear me? Yeah? Yes, okay. All right. So I will try to answer the last question. Yeah. So let's say, actually, myself, or all the employees of 50 Hertz that are not part of the control room premises. So I'm working for the system management department, but I'm not a control room employee. Let's say. So all the office employees haven't been tested so far. Since some weeks, there's a, let's say, there's the possibility of the people that are working for the control center premises, so the critical employees, to work to make the tests. And actually, it is all organized and paid by 50 Hertz. I think not directly in the building. I know that you have the possibility. There are contracts with different doctors or different hospitals where you can just go and you are directly tested. So you do not need to have any symptoms. This is the case of control room centers, and actually, it's not only about the COVID test itself in the sense of am I infected now or am I sick, but also the anti-corps. So both is possible. Currently, it's under discussion, but it's not implemented yet to extend all these tests to all the employees of the company, just to have as, let's say, as sure as possible, because all these tests could also lead to some failures and mistakes, but just to get the most feasible number of infected people. So this is something that is being discussed, but is not yet implemented. So mainly it's for the control room people, let's say our operators. And then for sure, on private purpose, you can just go to the doctor and you get tested if you had symptoms or you feel sick. Yeah. I hope this helps. Yes, now I can hear you. Yeah. No problem. Mhm. Ah, okay. Yeah, I see. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that's actually the point. Now everyone is connected and having telcos, and the connection is not always the best. But I think, I hope that for the speech part, it was understandable. And if it's recorded, it will be possible to just check if there are some questions. And then otherwise, for sure, I think we could also solve questions here today. And otherwise, you have also the Women Engineering Region 8 email address that you can find on IEEE website, and I'm available for more questions. Yeah. Ah, I see. Yeah. So, yeah, I understand. Yeah. So the question is, did you have to let any traditional power plant on just for frequency stability? Have you experienced more in general frequency stability troubles? So let's say it openly. If we don't operate the system with traditional power plants currently, if and this is not the case only for 50 hertz, but if you just really take the whole European system and the high voltage electricity grids, it's currently not possible to operate the system constantly for hours only with renewable. It sounds really beautiful and nice, and let's be all everyone really clean energy and so on. But we do have this problem that electricity cannot be stored. So it cannot be like a company like Amazon where you just take and put your stuff there and pick it up when it's needed. No, the energy you generate is the same that you need to consume. So due to this, there is some balancing energy required, and this inertia that is actually balancing this is provided by traditional power plants. We do have some first services where this reserve is being provided by wind energy, but it's still a kind of testing phase, first experience. But when it comes to hard situations, this balancing energy is needed from traditional power plants. It doesn't need to be in our control area, so it could come from other part of Germany, because in Germany we have a control reserves corporation, so we dimension this reserve and together, and then it can be needed in north, but it can come from the south or the other way down. So it's really efficient, but it wouldn't work so far by the time being only with renewables. Yeah. Yes. See you soon. Wishing you all a nice afternoon. Thank you. Bye bye.